Are we gonna be able to see the Twitch chat in here?
Presented by Play-by-Play Student Sports Network and the Next Network. It's the time for week 2 of Campus Kickoff.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Campus Kickoff with Harris Sideband. I am Michael Mursky. Thank you all for joining us. We have made it past week 1 of the 2024 college football season, and we are ready for what should be a fun week 2. We have a lot to talk about. Harris, how you doing?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I am good, and this is a live show. We are live doing this. It will be recorded and posted onto different podcast platforms after, but we can see the chats. No chill worry. So that is something different than we had last Thursday. So we'll be able to respond if you guys have any questions, hopefully. But Harris, are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
All right. The way we're going to start it off is with our rankings review.
Time to check in on the rankings review for Harris and Michael.
All right, so taking a look at the top 25 for myself and for Harris, starting with my own, and my top 4. My top 5 is a little different. My top 4 is different. I have Texas over Oregon. Last week I had it Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame. Now I have Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Notre Dame. I had Texas at 5 last time. So I've changed it up quite a bit. But Harris, and I know you have this too, and the AP has this, 57 first place votes. The Georgia Bulldogs have lost 2 games, I think, in the last 47 or something like that. And they've both
Right, and they're both to Alabama. They haven't. The only 2 games they've lost in like the last 4 years were to Alabama last year in the SEC championship, and then 2022 in the SEC championship to Alabama as well. They haven't lost a regular season game in like 3 years, which is crazy, and it's why they deserve to be at the number 1 spot for sure. I agree with that. We both had Ohio State last week, but definitely UGA for this week. They manhandled Clemson like it was nobody's business, and it wasn't even close. It was close to home. It was in Atlanta, but still, they're by far the number 1 team in the country right now.
Yeah. Look, we got a question here about Boise State. No, Boise State. Yeah, I agree. The fact that they gave up that many points to Georgia Southern was a little sad. But you can't say it took Boise State to score 6 touchdowns, or running backs to score 6 touchdowns. The fact that their offense is that dynamic should take them very far. I mean, I actually now realize that I don't have Liberty in here, but there's a couple teams that A&M is the first one out. Florida State obviously is not out. Liberty I would have also considered to put in here, and A&M, I already said A&M. What other? Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's the other team that I don't have in here, but Boise State offensively, I mean, the sky is the limit for them, and 6 touchdowns is not something to overlook. Like, we can't just look at this and brush over it like it shouldn't. Like, just because the defense gave up a lot of points to a team that maybe isn't as good, right? In order to win, you have to score points. Boise State does that, I think, probably in the top 20 in the country. I mean, I'm excited to see what they can do once they play a little better opponents. And yeah, I'm excited for Boise State. But let's go a little farther down. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I disagree with that a little bit. Boise State led up a ton of points to Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern's like a middle of the pack Sun Belt team, which to me was like, I got to take a step back and think that they're not the best group of 5 team in the country, because I really don't think they are. Like, their offense might be a top 3 or 4 group of 5 team in the country, but definitely not the defense is so suspect. Like, I agree. I don't have them in my top 25. I wouldn't have them in my top 25 just because of the fact that they you can't let up that many points to Southern in week 1. They won. The running back had 250 yards and 6 touchdowns. But I agree. Now that I'm looking at it, I didn't put a single group of 5 team in my top 25, but I think the best group of 5 team in the country, I said it last week, I'll say it this week, is Appalachian State. And I think Liberty's definitely up there too. But Boise State is like, I don't know. All their stuff with the quarterbacks and everything else, along with their suspect defense, it kind of scares me.
I think Memphis could be considered up there too. But look, Boise State and Oregon play this week, Harris. So
it's a 19-point spread as well.
It is a 19-point spread, and I think Boise State will cover, and it should be a shootout. But it'll be very interesting. That game is going to be exclusively on Peacock at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So that's the game that I'm going to be watching up until the night probably. Liberty actually plays at night too. But yeah, Oregon at 4. Look, I can't put them too far down. I had them at 2 before. Like, I know we can complain about that, but I mean they're still a really good team, and I'll get into it later. My off topic, I'll talk about Dylan Gabriel, but like this is a team we can't overlook them. I think they're going to beat, as I just said, Boise State, and then I think they're going to prove a lot to a lot of people. And then how about Notre Dame, number 5, taking care of Texas A&M, Harris. That's a fun game.
Super sloppy game though. Like like neither team really looked that good. It was at Texas A&M, but like Riley Leonard had a lot of missed passes, which like to me, Riley Leonard, like he's a solid college football quarterback, but he doesn't really pass the eye test. He just like he's fundamentally good, but like he's not really flashy, nothing crazy, and he misses a lot. Like kind of like how DJ missed a lot of passes last night. Riley Leonard missed.
It's not kind of like DJ.
It kind of is though. Riley won the game. He's a great quarterback. He's much better than DJ, but they missed passes very similarly.
Connor Wigman missed a lot of passes, but I'll tell you something about Notre Dame, Harris, and that is that you were sure that they were going to lose. You were telling me on Thursday how I was wrong, how Notre Dame was going to lose to Texas A&M, how Florida was going to beat Miami. Harris, do you remember that? Because I remember that.
I remember, but I also remember switching last minute to picking Notre Dame on Saturday.
What, on Saturday?
You
didn't tell me that. Hold on. You told me that A&M, who was, by the way, favorites at home against what I think is a top 5 team in the country, would win, and then they didn't. And I think Notre Dame deserves to be a top 5 ranked team.
I have them at 6, but I'm right with you. We're right there, 5 and 6. I have Notre Dame at 6. They beat A&M on the road in one of the hardest places to play in the entire country. I completely agree. I was wrong Thursday, but I will say last minute I did change Notre Dame. I took Notre Dame in that game, and I came out on top at the end of the day.
Now, there is one thing I would switch looking at these rankings, and this is on me because I made this switch after I sent these rankings in. So this is nothing like I was just telling you this now. I'd probably flip Miami and Arizona. I think Arizona is a top 10 team in the country. So say put Miami at 10 or Arizona at 10, Miami at 11. I think Arizona's top 10 team in the country, and you have them at 10, and they were in a shootout.
Kind of a shootout till like the fourth quarter. It really like second half they took over. Tate McMillan had 300 yards on 10 receptions and 4 touchdowns, which we both said was one of the best receivers in the country last week. He stood on business, showed it that. I have him at 10. I can't really see it because the thing in front of me, But
yeah, well, I'll tell you what. It was 61-39 against New Mexico.
Right. And for a minute it was super close, but Arizona has the opportunity to have a top 3 offense in the entire country. They have we were debating it last week, but I'll say this, they have the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the entire nation.
We were not debating this. We agreed on this last week. I said it was Fafita and McMillan, not Burden and Cook.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, the top 3 are probably Fafita and McMillan, Shador and Travis, and then Luther and Cook. But and Evan Stewart and Dylan Gabriel. But I definitely think Fafita and McMillan are number 1. And in my top 10, we can see here, I went Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Penn State, Oregon, USC, Arizona. Oregon dropped to 8 for me because you can't win by 10 at home to Idaho. You just, FCS team, you just can't do it. Alabama had played the FBS team at home and shut them out 63-0. When Idaho went into Oregon as an FCS school and lost by 10 points. They were playing Dylan Gabriel under center like every play. I don't know what Dan Lanning was doing, but it was just like, it was hard to watch. You have one of like it's 4th and 2 and you're under center to run inside zone. It just makes no sense to me. Like, that team has problems, and there's a good chance Boise State really gives them a run for their money this week because I had to move them to 8. Like, I just had to. Their first game in the Big Ten, not good.
That should be a fun one, Boise State, Oregon at 10 o'clock on Saturday rather. I want to talk about your number 9 team. I have them at 14. And that is USC. I was live for the end of the USC LSU game for the second half. That was an incredible game. Really good quarterback performances, I'd say, on both sides. It was a good defensive game in the beginning, and then offenses took off in the second half. And USC won. Miller Moss played very well. I don't have him ranked as high as you. I'm curious as to why you put USC already above a team like Michigan or even Miami. I didn't think they played as well as last week, or already Arizona and Missouri.
Because to me, USC wasn't high in my rankings going into last week because you have to remember how bad their defense was last year. They were awful. One of the worst defense in the entire country. But you got to give Lincoln Riley some credit. They held LSU with an electric SEC offense to 20 points. And to me, when you go to a neutral site game and you beat a top 15 team in the country and LSU with a top 10 offense in the entire country and hold them to 20 points, that means something. Miller Moss, I said it last week, is the perfect quarterback for USC. They have the weapons, guys like Zachariah Branch, and they can do it through the air incredibly. They were doing it on the ground pretty well against LSU. And for me, why I have USC so high is because I still think LSU is a top 15 team in the country. I have them at 16 only because they're 0-1. But when you beat a team like that, you got to move up into the top 10. Michigan kind of struggled last week for the first half of the football game. And especially the fact that Michigan's playing Davis Warren over Alex Orji. To me, I understand they're the defense.
Yeah, that's a bad argument. Hold on. Ohio State struggled in the first half of the Akron game, and you still have them at number 2.
Not really, though.
They were down.
They were down 3-0, stopped the count, whatever. It was 3-0. They won 61-10 or something.
It was
that.
52-6, I think. But
right. They blew them out. Michigan won by sub 20, I think. I think it was a 19-point game.
Well, we'll get into Michigan and Texas a little later, Harris. But
USC
you're right.
USC went to Vegas to play LSU, who last year had the best offense in the country. Right, and
then lost their quarterback.
Right, lost their quarterback
and their top 2 receivers.
Too. USC didn't only lose their quarterback; they lost. Well, I mean that actually goes for both teams. They both lost Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, but still.
And LSU lost the best receiving duo in the country.
Right, but LSU has Kyron Lacey, who's also one of the best receivers in the country. So at the same time, it goes both ways. And USC went in there and they beat them. And they weren't favorites; they were 5-point underdogs.
Well, yeah, I mean they were the worst team coming in. I don't think they should have won the game. I mean, I thought LSU could have won the game. And Zachariah Branch, number 1 for USC, is very fast, very dangerous returner. But Miller Moss was very impressive: 27 for 36 for 378 yards and a touchdown pass. I agree, and I thought Nussmeier played very well too, though.
I just don't think Garrett Nussmeier, he just, like, for example, like Kyron Hudson went in there last week against LSU and tore up that defense. He had a few drops, but like when it mattered, Kyron Hudson came in and made the one-handed grab, made the catch in the fourth quarter to seal the game pretty much. And like, in my opinion, they have better, like their weapons, like they're more all around. Like LSU has Mason Taylor, they have Kyron Lacey, but like Zachariah
Really good offensive line.
Right. But Garrett Nussmeier, to me, like, he's not going to win LSU 10 football games. He might win them 9, or he might win them 8 or 9, but I don't think he's going to win 10 football games as an LSU quarterback. He's nowhere near the level of Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow or the guys they've had. He's just like, he's a step below. He's definitely below Miller Moss, too. And to me, when you beat a team like LSU, even if they're not as good as they were last year, you got to move up into the top 10. And USC had an excellent performance. So that's what happened there.
All right, we'll talk.
LSU is 0-5 in the last week 1 games as well. That is true. They lost to FSU the last 2 years. And then I forgot who they lost to the year after they won the national championship. But yeah.
There is a matchup I want to talk about while we have the our rankings up here. And that is the AP 24 versus 14, your 21 versus 15, and my 19 versus 13. And that is NC State and Tennessee. That'll be a very fun game. I think had Texas and Michigan have been played, that would have been the best game this weekend. But I'm kind of curious because Tennessee, I know, whatever. Oh, what was it? Who did they play? I don't even remember who they played this week. But
yeah.
Who was it? Do you remember?
Chattanooga,
I think. And it was like 69-3. I think they won. It wasn't even close. It was 69-3. Yeah, there you go. All right, against Chattanooga. And now they go. This is a game in Charlotte, by the way. This is a neutral site game, but it's in North Carolina, so it's really
the Duke's Mayo Classic. Yeah,
this is the Duke's Mayo Classic, and it's going to be a good one. I was very impressed with Tennessee. I was not impressed with North Carolina against Western Carolina on Thursday night. Rather, North Carolina State against Western Carolina Thursday night. And I think NC State is winning the ACC. I know you think NC State is winning the ACC. Maybe not anymore after Miami. I didn't expect Miami to look as good, but week 1 is week 1. But what do you think about this matchup, Harris? Do you think Tennessee can carry that momentum, or you think this is where NC State starts to catch people's eyes?
Tennessee's like a 9-point favorite in this game, or like an 8-point favorite. And I said it last week, and I had a feeling it was going to kind of like hit back on me just because who they were playing this week. And I said Nico wasn't as good as everyone says he is. And they played Chattanooga. Like, until I see him play a real team, like, I'm not going to trust. I'm not going to trust it. Everyone went off on Joe Milton last year when he played well in the first 2 games when they played nobody. It happens every year with Tennessee. Now, Nico's a solid quarterback, right? But I really think there's a very good chance they lose the game in NC State. They might have barely beat Western Carolina, or they still beat them. They had to come back in the fourth quarter to like really beat them. But NC State has the offense to beat almost any team in the country ranked between 10 and 25. Because when you have a guy like Casey Concepcion, who's the best playmaker at his position in the country, he can play running back, he can play receiver, and you got to go into Tennessee unproven defense. Like, for me, it's all about the NC State offense and how they're going to match up against the Tennessee defense. And the other way around is really going to be a battle. But if the NC State offense can really like take advantage of that Tennessee defense, this game is going to be a complete like shootout because neither defense is really that good. I mean, Tennessee has a really good defensive line, but their secondary is questionable. Like, really good defensive line, secondary is kind of questionable. And if they can get around that secondary, this game's going to be way over in like the 60 totals. And they're just not going to cover 9 points.
I like NC State. I had them winning the ACC, and if you asked me last week, I would have had them winning this game. But I'm actually going to go with Tennessee. I know you said, oh, Nico played Chattanooga. I mean, 22 completions. 314 yards and 3 touchdowns is very good. But, like, usually those quarterbacks have, like, 30, 40,
right,
50 even attempts.
But again,
Nico had 28. I know it's against Chattanooga, but hold on. Dylan Sampson went 12 carries, 124, and 3 touchdowns. Like, this is not just a passing. This is not just an air attack. Tennessee's got a good team. They got good receivers. They got a good running back. And yeah, I mean, as you said, it's whose defense shows up. And honestly, I agree with you. I don't think anybody's defense is going to show up. So at that point, it's who can score more points. And this is going to be NC State's first real test with the new with Grayson McCall and Nico's first test and Tennessee's first test with their new quarterback. And it's going to be very interesting. And I agree with you that it's going to be a shootout and I don't even know what the over-under is, but
NC State tore teams up last year towards the end of the year with Brennan Armstrong at quarterback. And they upgraded at quarterback and they didn't lose that much. They lost a little bit on defense, but they lost Peyton Wilson, but on the offensive side, they didn't lose really anything at all. And they upgraded at quarterback. So to me, like if Grayson McCall shows up in the first half versus Tennessee, they win the football game. If they don't show up, which they didn't against Western Carolina in the first half, they will lose the football game. But you have to show up in the first half to win.
Absolutely. That's on 7:30 on ABC. That's going to be a big game out in Charlotte. There's one more team I want to talk about, ranked 5 for you, ranked 7 for me, and that is the Ole Miss Rebels. They have Middle Tennessee on Saturday at 4:15. They're coming off. They're ranked 6th, by the way, in the AP, and they had a huge win against Furman. What was it, 76-0? Is that off the top of my head?
Right.
Yeah, 76-0. And again, it's Furman, 418 yards and 5 touchdown passes for Jackson Dart, who's looking really good.
Okay, here's my thing with Jackson Dart. If I'm a betting man to bet a guy to win the Heisman Trophy, I'm going to be biased. I already picked it. I am a betting man. I took Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman Trophy. But if I wasn't picking Jalen Milroe, I would pick Jackson Dart. And the only reason I picked it, I don't think he's a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the country. But Lane Kiffin's going to do what Lane Kiffin does, and he's going to stat pad Jackson Dart to the moon. He did it with Derrick Henry. He did it with Amari Cooper. He'll do anything in his power to have Jackson Dart stat pad and win the Heisman Trophy. Now, Ole Miss has a great offense. They brought a lot of guys in on defense in the transfer portal, and then they got Trey Harris on offense who had like 160 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against Furman. So they have the tools to run the table in the SEC, but I just don't think Lane. Like I have them at 5, right? I'm pretty sure. I'm seeing Michaels, but I'm 95% sure I have them at 5. I don't think they can beat Georgia or Texas or Alabama. Lane Kiffin struggled to beat Alabama every single year he's been at Ole Miss. He hasn't beat them. He hasn't beat a single top team in the SEC, but he can run the table with everybody else. So as long as Ole Miss, I have them as the 5th best team in the country. I have them there because I think they are the 5th best team in the country. I just don't see them beating Georgia, Alabama, or Texas because I don't think Lane Kiffin has the coaching power right now to beat one of those teams, to out-coach those guys.
Let's take a look down the list here. Any other teams we should talk about? We'll talk about Clemson a little later. Yeah, let's talk about Penn State. This is a good comment here. Gamer Knight 63 says, I think Penn State's got to stay at 8. And Aller had a great performance against West Virginia, who they ultimately beat 34-12 after a rain delay. Drew Aller went 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. Noah Singleton, the running back, had 13 carries, 114 yards and a touchdown. And Penn State looked very good.
Yeah, not what I expected at all. I expected Penn State to be in that game with West Virginia till the 4th quarter. I expected that to be like down to the last few minutes. I had Penn State on upset watch last week, and I was completely wrong. They went in there and they went into Morgantown and killed West Virginia. Drew Aller looked really, really good. Like last year, if you were asking about Drew Aller, I would have said, this guy sucks. Like he's not that good. He didn't live up to the hype. But right now, after that West Virginia game, Penn State's a really good football team and might be the 2nd best team in the Big Ten. Like they could beat Oregon if Oregon plays like they did last week.
Okay, but that's the fluke, I think. I don't think Oregon's going to play like they did last week for the rest of the season.
Is it a fluke, or is Dylan Gabriel just not that good? Like I said, he wasn't that good.
All right. One more team I want to talk about here, and you have them at 25. I don't have them ranked, but that's because they've only played one game. And they did look good in that game, but that's the Boston College Eagles. You think against Florida State, which is the only game they played this year. I mean, that's the only game everyone played this year, but they were the last to play. So they were like the ones we were all like waiting for,
right.
Boston College was the last team in the FBS to play because Florida State had already played before last night. You think last night's performance alone was good enough to put them in the top 25 favorites?
If it was good enough for Georgia Tech to move up to 23 in the 8 people, it was definitely good enough for Boston College, who beat Florida State by a way more significant amount than Georgia
I don't have Georgia Tech in my top 25 either, by the way.
Here's my thing with Florida State. They're 0-2, but they were 10 for a reason because on paper, they're a top 15 team in the country by the roster. And Bill O'Brien went in there and beat them at home in Tallahassee. Bill O'Brien, as a college head coach last night, best job he could have done as his first game as a college football head coach. Thomas Castellanos, I didn't realize going into this week that he was still the quarterback at Boston College. I'm going to admit it, I didn't realize that because he was really good last year. They almost beat Florida State last year, and they went in there and killed them this year. Boston College.
In Tallahassee.
Right. Last year would have been in Boston College. This
year was last night was in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee, right. And they won. And they beat them by, I forget the final score, but it was a 3-touchdown game. And that, to me, you got to give them their credit because Florida State was the 10th ranked team in the country. Even though there wasn't any people that came out after week 0, they were still the 10th ranked team in the country. And when you beat that kind of team and you were like a 30 through 40, maybe 35 through 45 ranked team in the entire country, you move up into the top 25. Now, I have them at 25 because we'll see where they go next week. But definitely you got to give them their credit for winning like that.
No, you absolutely do. 28-13 was the final score last night in Tallahassee, which is very impressive. Florida State
was never close.
No, it wasn't. Florida State was playing from behind the entire time. And Florida State, we'll be talking about them a little later. Boston College has Duquesne at home this week. Tickets. I'm looking at ESPN. Tickets as low as $5 for that game. So if you want to go watch top 25 team in the country and pay $5, that's the cheapest. Oh no, I found a cheaper one. Northern Arizona and Arizona is cheaper, and it looks like we're just looking at ticket prices because why not? We got a couple $5 ones, but that's $4. Yeah, I think that's the cheapest we're gonna get. I know Maryland was cheap against UConn. It was like $3-4 on tickets, but anyway. Yeah, so 2 teams we haven't talked about that are very intriguing in both our rankings are Texas and Michigan. And this leads us to the game of the week.
It is time for the guys' pick for the game of the week.
Harris and I usually don't try to have the same one, but we talked about NC State, Tennessee. It's going to be a great game, but it's the reigning champs against the team that could be the champs this year. I mean, Texas is a very strong team now in the SEC. They made it to the playoffs last year. They lost to Washington, who ultimately lost to Michigan, and those two actually play a little later. They play in October, Michigan and Washington. But look, Texas, Michigan, it's going to be a great game. We're going to call it, by the way, noon Eastern time on Twitch and Instagram. And for now, that's it. On noon, Josh and I, right here on the Next Network, which I'm very excited for. Alex Orgy, Davis Warren, they said Warren was going to start right before the Fresno State game. It was kind of a surprise. Quinn Ewers and Texas played very well against Colorado State, which impressed me. I thought they were going to win, but not 52-0. I thought Colorado State was, a pretty good team. Ewers, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Arch Manning went in there, got a couple scores at the end. But how about the Texas Longhorns? And it makes this game even better because I think you and I can both agree that Texas is the better team. But this game is in the Big House, which is a big advantage for Michigan.
The defending champs, right? And when the NIL and everything went on during the offseason, the transfer portal, Texas definitely had one of the best classes coming in. They brought in Isaiah Bond and Amari Niblack from Alabama. But going into last week, Colorado State is a good football team, right? Their quarterback went on air and said he got offered $800,000 to transfer to big Power 5 schools and that he was staying at Colorado State with Torrey Horton to do big things. But what happened? They lost 52-0 to the Texas Longhorns. They went to the playoff last year. Michigan won the national championship last year. It's one of the biggest games of the season, but Michigan's offense is awful. Like, you have Davis Warren starting at quarterback for the Michigan Wolverines. And they have some good receivers. Colson Loveland's pretty good. Their running back had like 100 yards last week. And other than that, it's really iffy, but the defense is really good. You have the best player in the country in Will Johnson, and he's probably going to be matched up against Isaiah Bond. So to me, that's
Who's
something
one of the fastest receivers
players in the entire country. Right. So this game, like, they match up well against each other because while Texas has an incredible offense, their defense let up a ton of points last year to multiple schools. While Michigan has one of the best defenses, they really struggle on offense. So to me, it kind of evens out, but I still would think Texas wins the football game.
Yeah, Texas
yeah.
Go ahead.
I said I don't know what you were thinking, but in my opinion, Texas should win the football game, like, pretty easily.
No, Texas is 7.5-point favorites. I wouldn't say pretty easy. You can't really say pretty easily win a football game when they're playing in. I mean, they're not just the biggest stadium in the country. This is an advantage. Like, Michigan has the crowd behind them. I know what you just mentioned. Their offense is not ideal. They still have one of the best running backs in the country.
Where was Donovan Edwards last week, though? Where was he? Yeah, like
where was Michigan was flat against
Donovan Edwards,
especially in the beginning of the game.
Donovan Edwards didn't even lead the team in rushing yards. The backup did.
Maybe they were saving Donovan Edwards for this.
Donovan Edwards had like 25 yards. I didn't even mention him when I was talking about Michigan because I don't know where he is. He's the cover of NCAA 25. He broke out for 2 long touchdowns in the national championship game. But where is he right now? Because he did not show against Fresno State whatsoever.
Who do you think? Is it confirmed that Warren is starting on Saturday, or you think they're going to see Orji?
I would think so. I don't know why you would start him one week and not the next. Alex Orji sucks. I said he sucked, but Davis Warren is no better.
Well, Davis Warren,
he's probably more polished than Alex Orji, but he definitely doesn't have the talent.
He ended up going 15 for 25, 118 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He had over 100 yards less than Keene, the Fresno State quarterback, and Mullings ended up leading the team in rushing yards. How about the tight end, Colston Loveland? He's one of the best tight ends in the country.
One of the best tight ends in the country.
87 yards touchdown for Michigan. And defensively, as you said, I mean, they got Graham on the defensive line. They got Will Johnson, the best defensive back in the country.
But they lost.
They lost a lot.
They let Keon Sabb go, who had 2 picks in the first 5 minutes for Alabama this year.
They also got that D lineman from Maryland. I'm forgetting his name. You know who I'm talking about? Well, it doesn't matter.
Even though it's in the big house, Texas has the offense to beat Michigan, and Michigan doesn't have the offense to beat Texas. And I know they say defense wins championships, but in college football, you got to have an offense to beat a good team, and Michigan doesn't have the offense.
So you and I agree Texas minus 7.5. I think it's going to be like a 10-point game. You think it's going to be closer to 20?
I think it's going to be like a 15, 20-point game, yeah. And Michigan's finally going to lose because they should have lost last year. They never lost. They made it all the way, and they won the national championship. But now it's time for Michigan's time to end and time for them to lose to Texas.
All right, well, that game's going to be in the big house this Saturday. That's the game day game. That's the big noon kickoff game. That's our game on the next network. Texas at Michigan, the game of the week. We move on to our upsets.
Time to see who the guys think should be on Upset Watch.
All right. I know maybe we're fighting for clicks, not fighting for wins, but Colorado is going on the road after looking pretty flat against North Dakota State, which a lot of people expected them to lose. A lot more people than should have expected them to lose. I thought they were going to win, but I kind of expected that game to be just about that close. That Colorado North Dakota State game, I might be in the minority in this, but went just about the way I expected it to go. I expected it to be close for 4 quarters. I expected Colorado to play from behind at some point, have the lead, and North Dakota State to keep it close the whole time. I never thought it was going to be a blowout for either team. I never once thought North Dakota State was going to win either. But this week, they're on the road at Nebraska. Nebraska's 7.5-point favorites. Dylan Raiola, I mean, he's got all the hype there. Whatever. They beat UTEP 40-7. Raiola threw 2 touchdowns and 238 yards. And everyone's talking about how Nebraska, this is a 7:30 game. This is NBC's game this week, the Big Ten night game. And everyone's talking about how Nebraska's going to ride this, and Colorado almost lost to North Dakota State, and Nebraska's going to go ahead and embarrass Deion Sanders in Colorado. No, they're not. Colorado's going to win this game. I think Colorado's going to win this game. I think they're going to go to Nebraska and get it done. not just because Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, we could talk about him forever. They almost lost to North Dakota State. But people, for some reason, are not giving them a chance. I mean, you see them all over social media. They're a good football team. And it's not just Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. They have pieces all over the offense, all over the defense. Someone in the comments earlier mentioned
Jimmy
Horn.
Horn, but their
Jimmy
defense
Horn.
is so bad. I agree with you. I think they're going to be in this football game, but their defense is so bad.
There's definitely room for improvement.
Like, their defense is horrid.
Look, yeah.
And you got to go, and Dylan Raiola leading Nebraska. They won last week. I agree, though. Last year in this game, Colorado and Nebraska played, and Colorado killed them. It was week 2 last year as well. They always play week 2. They killed them. And to me, the 7-point thing didn't really make sense in my head. I thought it should have been more close, like a pick 'em. But I agree. Colorado has a really good chance to win this football game, but the defense has got to step up because Dylan Raiola will fry that defense.
Yep. All right. I think the Buffaloes are going to go ahead and beat Nebraska. Harris?
Well, my game of the week, App State, Clemson. In Death Valley, I've said it 100 times. I think App State is the best group of 5 team in the entire country. I think Joey Aguilar, Caden Robinson is the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the group of 5. I think Joey Aguilar should have been Sun Belt Player of the Year last year, and they're going to go into Clemson and hand them their second loss of the season because Clemson looked, I mean, sure they played Georgia, but they looked atrocious. Their best player last week was Antonio Williams, who had 76 yards receiving, and that was it. That was the most impressive player of the game. Phil Maffa didn't play that well. Cade Klubnik has struggled ever since he got the starting role at Clemson. And they're going in, Clemson is 18-point favorites against Appalachian State this week. I was supposed to go to this game. I'm not going to the game. But the fact that it's 18 points to me seems like the crazy. If I would take App State plus 18, 100 days out of 100 days versus Clemson, I think they can win the game outright. Kind of like how you thought last week Old Dominion was going to beat South Carolina and they had it till the end of the game. I think Appalachian State has a very good chance to beat Clemson. A very good chance.
Yeah, but unlike this 18-point spread, that one was 35. That pick was a little
20,
more impressive.
It was 21.
What was 21?
The ODU South Carolina.
I thought it was like 35.
No,
maybe the other one. Maybe the Baylor Tarleton State game. The other game.
Yeah, that was like 35, which wasn't close at all. Right.
Yeah, Baylor covered that.
Right. But App State is going to go into Clemson and give them a run for their money. App State almost beat UNC last year. Joey Aguilar had 5 touchdowns against UNC last year. He fried every single team in the Sun Belt. And last week, they fried ETSU. I mean, sure, it's Eastern Tennessee State, and it was an FCS school, but App State's not flying under any radars. Dabo Swinney said they have their full attention because they have to handle a guy, Joey Aguilar, who if he was at a Power 5, he was offered money to go Power 5. He didn't because of what App State can do to make the playoff this year. I don't know what you think about this game, but to me, App State has a very good chance to win, and there's no world where it should be an 18-point spread.
Yeah, I know you like App State. I'm going to throw in some other games that I think could be upsets. I think Syracuse is going to beat Georgia Tech in Syracuse.
Yeah, Kyle McCord could definitely go in there and cause some drama with that.
I think watch out for Tulane, 10-point underdogs hosting Kansas State. They're ranked 17 in both AP and for me. I would also, there was another game that Tulane, Kansas State. I was also considering that, but I figured Colorado would turn some more heads. Arkansas State is at home, and they are 7-point favorites against Tulsa. I think that's another upset to watch. I don't know if Arkansas State and Tulsa is going to be that far apart, but those are definitely those are some just throw out. And of course, as
or Boise State, Oregon,
Nebraska, and App State, Clemson.
Boise State, Oregon.
Yeah, that's a 19.5-point spread. I think Boise State could cover, but I still think Oregon could play very well.
App State 1,000% covers, and I would say 40% wins the football game.
Well,
I said it here. If I'm wrong, you can clip me next week. You can put it on TikTok. You can put it anywhere you want. App State covers, and there's a good chance they win the football game.
Okay. Well, we got a lot of time here. We'll be able to talk a little more after this, but because I got a pretty long topic for off topic. So let's go ahead and move on.
It's time to see how far the guys want to go off topic.
Harris, I know you got a lot to talk about, so go ahead. You go first.
Right. So for my off topic tonight, I watched Florida State the last 2 weeks in a primetime game play football, and I watched them lose twice. And I watched DJ Uiagalelei miss so many passes. So many times where there's wide open guys, he's overthrowing it or underthrowing it. I've watched him sit there in the pocket, not seeing what's coming. And to me, it wonders what happened with DJ Uiagalelei. Because when this guy came out of St. John Bosco out of high school 5-6 years ago, he was the truth. There was Bryce Young and there was DJ Uiagalelei. And the guy behind DJ Uiagalelei, you know who that was, Michael?
Uiagalelei. Yes, I do know who that was. Another California kid.
Yeah. Coleridge Stroud, CJ Stroud, was right behind DJ. There was Bryce, there was DJ, and there was CJ. And that's just crazy because this kid was the truth. Like when he came in versus Clemson his freshman year when Trevor had COVID and he played Notre Dame. Yeah, and he played Notre Dame.
I remember that game.
They lost, but he looked like the next coming of Trevor Lawrence.
It was 47-40. It was overtime. We called that.
Right,
game.
right.
It was incredible.
He looked like he was going to come in and save Clemson for the next 4 years or 3 years, and he would be the guy. And then he went into Clemson his sophomore year and started and was mediocre. Now, he wasn't horrible, but he was mediocre. And then he played his junior year at Clemson and was atrocious. Like, that year for DJ was his worst game or worst year of college football for sure. Yeah, he played his junior year. No. Yeah. He played 3 years at Clemson.
3 years at Clemson or 2 years at Clemson?
No, I
Is
thought
he a fifth-year senior right now? I thought he was fourth.
Yeah. No. I'm pretty sure he's a fifth year. Let me just fact check. I'm pretty sure he started 2 years at Clemson, and that third year he was atrocious, like his worst year. And then he went to Oregon State. I'm gonna fact check myself because. Okay, yes. He played 3 years at Clemson. I'm right.
So
and it was his sophomore year. He was really bad. It was the sophomore year he was bad. The junior year he was solid. The sophomore year it was like where he had more picks and touchdowns. Then he went in his junior year and had a solid year, but then he transferred to Oregon State, which he was solid in the Pac-12 last year. Like Oregon State was a top 25 team in the country. Like no question. They were good. And then his coach left to go to Michigan State, and now he's at Florida State, and this is the worst form of DJ I've ever seen. I don't know what you think, but to me, it had to be something with Clemson because this kid out of high school was as highly rated as Cade was out of high school. They were both number ones. Like DJ was the number one pocket passer in the country. Bryce was the number one dual threat. He was an 101 rated quarterback. I sure he had like the opportunity to play at St. John Bosco, and you can go into that, and that gave him 5-star, whatever. But still, when he came in his freshman year, he was unbelievable. And then after that, it's like he fell off a cliff. Because I don't think Clemson, since Trevor, I think Trevor was such a good, Trevor Lawrence was just so perfect. There was no way you could mess that guy up. There was no way that Trevor Lawrence was going to go 4 years in college football and mess up. But DJ and Cade were number one quarterbacks too, but they weren't Trevor level, and they weren't developed properly. And I don't think Trevor you could develop not properly, but you can these are guys that just didn't have the talent Trevor did, but they weren't developed right. And now they're going to go into the pro. Like DJ before the last 2 games, if he were to declare for the draft, last year, he would have been like a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick. But right now, if DJ were to declare tomorrow, he wouldn't get picked.
No, I don't even know if he gets signed undrafted.
Right, which to me is just mind-boggling because this is a guy that was so hyped up. Everyone's seen the clip of him flying over Clemson and Dabo looking out the window and saying, that's where you're going to be throwing touchdown passes. But he wasn't. He was throwing interceptions. He was horrible.
Yeah, I remember. I saw that clip today of the plane. This is where you'll be throwing touchdowns.
Yeah. To me, it's crazy how a guy that highly touted out of high school, Clemson can't miss twice, right? You can't miss on DJ and then miss on Cade. It just you don't do that. It doesn't work like that. They're supposed to be the best quarterback in the country come their junior year if you're the number one quarterback out of high school. If you look at the last 10 years, look at the number one quarterback in the country, I would say 7 of the 10 were first-round draft picks. I could be wrong, but I'm going to assume 7 of at least the 10 were first-round draft picks. And then they missed twice in two out of 4 years they miss.
Hold on, 7 out of the 10 what?
I would say 7 out of the 10 number one quarterbacks in the country coming out of high school were first-round picks. Now, I can think of a few that
technically wasn't he number 2?
No, he was the number 1 pocket passer.
Oh, I see. Okay, fine.
Because they did it before like 2022, and it was just one column. There were 2 columns, dual threat and pocket passer. And it was Bryce and DJ, but they were the same rating, per se.
Right.
Like there's a few, like Jacob Eason was the number 1 quarterback at a high school, but like Bryce Young, right? I could think Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers. Like these are guys that are first-round picks.
I can't believe that California had Bryce Young, DJ Oyangole, and CJ Stroud at the same time. Like that is.
Yeah, but DJ sucks, or he sucks now. But
okay, but hold on. But he was. Yeah, I mean, I just said he was ranked the best at his position back then. Yeah, no, it was very disappointing, DJ.
It's so sad to see, and it's supposed to be Florida State's revenge year, right? Because they didn't make the playoff last year. But thanks for coming out, FSU. You're now 0-2, and you're not doing anything. I don't know if they're going to win 6 games. Did you look at their schedule? It's not easy whatsoever. They still have to play. They have to play.
Here's their schedule. They have Memphis, which is not an easy game. First of all, Memphis is one of the best Group of 5 teams. They got California, SMU, which are somehow conference games. Then they play Clemson. We don't know what's up with that. At Duke, at Miami, which is going to be fun. Host North Carolina, and they go at Notre Dame, and then they end with Charleston Southern and Florida.
They might not win 6 games.
They will win 6 games. They'll beat Cal. They'll beat Duke. They'll beat UNC.
I don't know if they'll beat UNC in Florida.
Wow, they might not win 6 games.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're already 0-2. They have 10 games to play. They have to win 6 out of the 10. Notre Dame, Florida, UNC, Duke,
Clemson,
Miami. Clemson. That's 6 games right there that they could easily lose.
Memphis, I'd throw in there. SMU. What about SMU's a good team. SMU.
Yeah, they might not win 6 games if they play like they did. And I thought about it, right? I was thinking, how can FSU be so bad? But when I'm thinking about the guys they brought in on offense that were highly touted transfers, maybe not the world saw it, but I saw it because they brought 2 guys in from Alabama, Roydell Williams and Malik Benson, and they weren't good at Alabama. Roydell Williams was like the 3rd down running back, right? And Malik Benson was like the wide receiver 4. But those were like 2 of their biggest transfers on the offensive side, and they both start. So to me, when I start thinking about it, I'm like, these guys weren't good at Bama. Why would they be good at FSU? And then they brought in DJ, who I thought was going to be solid at FSU, but he sucks. So
I thought it was going to be good.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you what's going on. I'm going to let you roll, but I don't know what happened with DJ. And if me as a college football fan, all my blame just goes to how Dabo Swinney developed him in those first few years at Clemson.
All right, my off topic is that FanDuel has updated their Heisman Trophy odds after Week 1. And I know I've been talking about how much I like Oregon, but Dylan Gabriel is at the top of these odds. And after Week 1, I don't think he deserves to be. Technically, he's tied with Jackson Dart and Cameron Ward. I don't know why I said Cameron. With Cam Ward. Well, it is Cameron, but nobody calls him Cameron. That's not the point. Dart, Cam Ward, Gabriel, plus 850. Dart and Ward would be the 2 at the top. And then I'd throw Beck, Milroe, Ewers, Gabriel, and then Nico, and then how it is, Nico, Will Howard. And then they got Miller Moss and Travis Hunter and Drew Aller at plus 2,800. I just want to talk about it. Heisman odds. These are all quarterbacks minus Travis Hunter because it will be a quarterback or Travis Hunter. What do you think right now after Week 1? Harry? Can I call you Harry? Is that like people call you Harry?
No, we're not going with Harry.
Okay, Harris.
So Mikey.
Fine. Okay, Harris. Am I saying that right? I don't know how you Americans say it, but say your name.
Harris.
Harris. Okay, see, there you go. We're going off topic. No, but let's talk about the Heisman odds. Who right now? Who would your pick be?
Non-bias and bias, I would both say Jalen Milroe. Only, I was talking to my friend about this earlier because I took Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman at plus 1100 because to win the Heisman Trophy, 95% of the time, you have to be a top 7 team in the country. You have to be a quarterback. In the last few that have been a quarterback, most of them have been able to do it on the ground and through the air. They've been able to do it both. And Jalen Milroe will be on a top 7 team in the country. He's the most versatile player in the country. And what was the third thing I said? I already forgot. But he checks all 3 boxes, right? Because on 9 passes last week, Jalen Milroe had 200 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air while carrying it 8 times for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, and he only played a half. And the only person that I can think recently that won the Heisman Trophy that didn't win so many games was Jaden Daniels, and he only won it. Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm a huge Jaden Daniels guy, and I'll say he's the best college football quarterback I've watched. I would say LSU Jaden Daniels was more fun to watch than LSU Joe Burrow because he could make every play anywhere on the field. But Jaden Daniels only won it, which he should have won it no matter what, but he only won it because Bo Nix had a really bad game to end the season. And Bo Nix would have won it, and Michael Penix, one of them, probably would have won it if they didn't end the year with a bad game in the last 3 games. To win the Heisman Trophy, you can't mess up at the end of the season. You can mess up at the very beginning of the season, but you can't mess up at the end. And I don't think Jalen Milroe has any games towards the real end of the season, like last 3 weeks, that he can mess up like that. But other guys do. And to me, Jalen Milroe has the best odds to win
Auburn,
it.
first of all, is that game.
Right, but they're not going to lose to Auburn. They're
That's
at home this year.
Auburn's a good team.
They're at home this year. Alabama against Auburn at home has blown them out every single year. Now, when it goes to Jordan Hare, that's a different thing. But when it's at home in Tuscaloosa, that's completely different. Now, if I wasn't Jalen Milroe, I said earlier, I'd take Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I'd probably also between beat Dart. I mean, Cam Ward's looked good too. Anything else? Yeah.
Cam Ward, he beat Florida, and Florida people.
No. He killed Florida.
Okay.
And you said it was the game of the week, and you said Florida, and
right.
you said it was not going to be that way. So.
Okay. But people underestimate how bad Florida's defense is. Cam Ward had a great game, and I'm not discrediting him at all. He had a really bad pick at the beginning of the game. First of all, I watched that. I only watched the first half of the football game because by halftime it was over. But from what I saw at Cam Ward, it's just anybody could rip up the Florida defense. Go watch what Jaden Daniels did to Florida last year, and it's the best college football performance of a quarterback in years. That guy tore up that team. He had 600 total yards against Florida. He ran for 200 against them. Anyone can do it, and Miami isn't going to be a top 10 team in the country come the end of the year. And you got to be. And to me, those guys that could be on a top 10 team at the end of the country to win the Heisman are Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, and that pretty much, and Quinn Ewers, that pretty much ends the list. But the one that could have the best overall stats and could do it on the ground better than all 3 of those guys, or all 4 of them, is Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I mean, Gabriel I also think should still be in the consideration. All right, Harris, anything else you want to talk about?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think we covered a lot of stuff tonight.
Yeah, we did. No, we really did. We've gone fast. I mean, we've gone 50 minutes, but this has been fun. I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for Michigan and Texas. I'm excited to see how Michigan does in their first test since winning the national championship. What else am I excited for? I'm excited for NC State, Tennessee. I'm excited for Boise State and Oregon.
Hold on, let me get to this comment. Milroe throws the ball 10 times a game. The last thing I'm going to cover. He threw the ball 9 times in a game where they played Western Kentucky and were beating them at halftime by 30 plus. And he had 5 touchdowns in the first half. So he threw it. There was one game last year where he threw it 15 times. And I'm pretty sure it was Michigan or UGA, one of them. He didn't really throw the football. But trust me, Jalen Milroe has the best deep ball in the entire country. They're going to have him throw the football, and he has receivers to do it. Ryan Williams, who we forgot to get to, and Jeremiah Smith, 2 freshmen. Jeremiah Smith plays for Ohio State. Both had crazy weeks. Ryan Williams had 2 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he has Jeremy Bernard, Kendrick Law. He has guys on offense to throw the football to. Jalen Miller will throw the ball 25 times a game, 30 times a game.
I will also point out that game, the one that you and I are going to be at on the 28th, is like huge for Jalen Miller.
We could definitely do something at that game. Like for this, we could maybe put something together.
I think so
that
too.
Game's going to be huge.
Actually, I want to talk to you about that. We'll talk about it after. But that game, especially like for Jalen Milroe, because if he wins that game, any doubts, if Alabama wins that game, then Jalen Milroe is obviously going to have a big part of it. Jalen Milroe has to have the best performance of his life if Alabama wins that game. Any doubts people have about Alabama or under Kellen DeBoer or Jalen Milroe as a quarterback get thrown out the window. All the naysayers will know if Alabama gets that win in 25 days. Yeah. All right, Harris. You ready for some college football on Saturday?
I'm ready for another week of the best sport on the planet.
Absolutely. All right, we'll wrap things up here. Appreciate you tuning in to our first live edition of the Campus Kickoff. We'll be back on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock for our producer, Zeke, and my co-host, Harris Sideband. I'm Michael Mursky. This has been Campus Kickoff. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your night.
As stated, this has been brought to you by Play-by-Play Student Sports Network and the Nets Network. This has been Campus Kickoff.